Okay, y'all. I'm gotta do some laundry here, and I'm trying to multitask. Things are just going crazy, and I had this idea I've been kicking around as I'm reading the Wheel of Time. Let me grab some stuff and get it in the wash machine. All right, so I'm reading this book here as I'm multitasking. I'm in the midst of the Wheel of Time. I'm in about halfway through the Shadow Rising, so I've not completed the series as of yet. Um, so yeah, I'm kicking a few things around in my brain. So the other day, I actually went back and read the philosophical chapters at the end of Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. If you go to the back of that book, in the epilogue section in chapters 2 and 3, he has some philosophical chapters. So really, probably what's going to end up happening is I'll probably end up titling this video something like, I don't know, Leo Tolstoy, Frank Herbert's Dune, and Wheel of Time. Kind of comparing and contrasting two views of history, like the great man theory of history with collective determinism. All right, so this is a little bit more of a philosophical discussion for people that are into that sort of thing. So yeah, let me check on the baby out here real quick. All right, she's doing fine. Son's playing Nintendo, whatever. All right, so let's talk about it now that I have a breather. I probably only have 10 minutes if I'm lucky to squeeze this in. That's why I have to do it now. So I'm going to talk to you over a beverage. So this great man theory of history, it's um, it's kind of like linked or bound to a Scottish historian, essayist, and philosopher named Thomas Carlyle. And I think he published a book. Was it around the 1840s ish, somewhere in there? And what he posits is that history is kind of just a chain of, it's kind of formed by great men. Okay, so if you think of like the various Caesars, for instance, Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, people like Charles Martel, Charlemagne, Napoleon Bonaparte, maybe the czars of Russia, people like Abraham Lincoln, right? That there's this chain of history of these great men that are kind of like born leaders. They have a natural born ability to lead, and therefore, um, it's not really a learned or acquired skill. It's something that's just in them, and that they almost have like a divine right to rule. Okay, it's a long story. Okay, I know you can hear all the background noise. This video is probably going to turn out terrible. Got the wash machine running. Let me see if I can find a quieter spot. So yeah, basically what Carlyle is proposing is that history is driven by these exceptional great men, and really not by the collective actions or forces within any given society. All right, that's something that's kind of known as collective determinism, right? So we'll talk about Leo Tolstoy. That's why I was reading these philosophical chapters and how the Wheel of Time kind of sparked this whole idea in my mind, or got my train of thought on this. Is Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace kind of is a philosophical response in a way to this great man theory. Leo Tolstoy uses like Napoleon and like Alexander the First kind of as his great man examples, semi truck. So for Tolstoy, like he would posit in War and Peace that great men don't determine history, that they're kind of just writing along with the current of history, along with the rest of us, that it's really like the collective will of a society, a large group of people, um, that determines the course of history, that it's not just like to focus specifically on the actions of great men produces a false narrative. So, for instance, we'll use an example from American history since I am an American. I am a real American. Um, Abraham Lincoln. A lot of people say like Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery. Well, it is true that Lincoln his actions led to the abolition of slavery, but to say that Abraham Lincoln did it on his own kind of is reductionist, right? There was a whole group of people that were kind of united in one will, right? A collective will to result in the abolition of the institution of slavery in the United States. You could say the same thing about like the preservation of the Union. Okay. In other words, for Tolstoy, history is determined by a whole bunch of factors that are really so numerous that we really can't boil them down. It's almost impossible to say what determines history itself, right? Like, is it great men? Is it societies? Now, he doesn't negate the actions of great men, nor does he have like a hard determinism where it's like there is no free will. So, in a way, you could kind of think of, I don't know, like somebody riding on board a ship, right? Like, if I'm on board a cruise ship, let's say that the cruise ship is history and it's going from point A to point B, wherever that may be. I don't know, San Francisco to Osaka, Japan, right? While I'm board that ship, right, like I can do a multitude of different things. I can go and play shuffleboard. I can go to the pool and swim. I can go eat a dinner. Um, I can go to the bar and get a drink. I There's a bunch of different activities I can engage in. I can go to my cabin and read a book, but I cannot alter the course of the ship. The course of the ship is fixed. So you can almost think of like the whole idea of the ship going from point A to point B is kind of like fixed and determined. But I still have, man, another semi. I still have free and I can determine my own actions still. They're not like fixed. So Frank Herbert kind of, I'd say, sides more with Tolstoy and collective determinism because if you think about Paul Atreides, right, who he has all these prophecies that have been seeded by the Bene Gesserit, and the Fremen people believe in this Lisan al Gaib, the voice from the outer world, this Messiah that's supposed to come and lead the Fremen people. Um, Paul, even though he does kind of fulfill their prophecies and whatnot, when it comes to the galactic jihad, okay, the Fremen are going to embark on this conquest of the known universe. Paul does not want the jihad to happen, but there's nothing he can do to stop it. He basically gets through his prescient visions. He realizes at a certain point the jihad is going to happen regardless, independent of me. There's nothing that I can do to stop it now. Even if I was to die, they would still go out and conquer in my name as if I was a martyr. So he just kind of rides along with it. So in a lot of ways, Frank Herbert is kind of embracing like Tolstoy's theory of collective determinism, that even people like the Tsar of Russia or Napoleon were caught up in these forces that were beyond their own control, that they're kind of like riding with the wave of history. So, boy, um, great man theory. Tolkien probably, if I think about J.R.R. Tolkien, he rejects great man theory, and that I think he has the most humblest of creatures in his universe are the ones that end up determining the course of history because it's not Aragorn or these mighty armies that defeat the Dark Lord in Lord of the Rings. It's the hobbits, right? The humblest of creatures. And his emphasis is really on self sacrifice and honor and duty and service to others and humility. Like the great men of Middle Earth could not defeat the Dark Lord because if you think like Boromir, he couldn't take the ring. Gandalf couldn't take the ring because it would corrupt and destroy him. But yeah, that's a different take. Now let's transition over into Wheel of Time and kind of try to figure out Robert Jordan's worldview on great man view versus collective determinism. Another thing of note with Tolstoy is like Tolstoy explicitly rejects the idea of divine intervention in history. So he's trying to put forth like a scientific methodology for it. Thomas Carlyle, he like has a divine right, like he believes in the forces of deity. I think he had strong Calvinistic roots. I don't know if he held to those, but I do know that he was like a Protestant, and that he came from like a Calvinist school of thought. Um, but what's going on in the Wheel of Time here is, and I'm not even getting into the cosmology of the universe. Maybe that's a discussion for another time. I'm going to run out of time here. I got to wrap things up. But he has the Taverin, right? So you have this concept of the Taverin, which are these individuals that are strongly bound to the wheel. And in fact, they are reincarnated heroes of the past. For instance, like Luz Therin, um, Randall Thor, the main protagonist, is like a reincarnated Luz Therin. So Taverin from the glossary, a person around whom the wheel of time weaves all surrounding life threads, perhaps all life threads, to form a web of destiny. So really, in a lot of ways, this is kind of like embracing the great man theory, but it's almost more, I don't know, Gnostic in a way, and that this universe is really dualistic. I couldn't call it Christian, but the dualism, another semi. So for Robert Jordan, like these great men of history are reincarnated over and over again. Okay, it's just a soul that's transmigrating into other bodies, so that the physical body itself is merely just like a container that is the souls of these great hero, these Taverin. That's what is important. So it seems like he's buying into the great man of history argument, and that it's really these great souls of history that are influencing and building the pattern of the age. But then he also has pattern of an age here, so I'll read that. The wheel of time weaves the threads of human lives into the pattern of an age, often simply called the pattern, which forms the substance of reality for that age. So the pattern of the age is built by the wheel of time. And so is it the wheel of time that is creating the course of history, or is it these Taverin? The wheel itself, I'm trying to figure that out, because theological implications here. Again, another semi. Look at this. Again, I'm still trying to figure out the cosmology of Robert Jordan's universe. I can't quite put my finger on it. It seems to be deist, in that the creator seems to have just created everything and then like pieced out, and he doesn't interfere or intervene in the affairs of man. So maybe we'll talk about that at some other time in the future as I get deeper into the series and some more of the cosmology unfolds. But yeah, it seems like Robert Jordan is trying to skirt some middle path between the great man of history and collective determinism. Um, Although his universe does seem to have some sort of force, like God force in it, whatever that is, the force from Star Wars or whatever. Um, yeah, I'm trying to figure out his cosmological view as it relates to God in the Wheel of Time. But it does seem to be very Gnostic, like Gnostic dualism. So, all right, that's it. Let me know what you think about great man theory versus collective determinism. Do you align closely with like Tolstoy's view, or do you subscribe to Thomas Carlyle's great man theory, or you know Frank Herbert? What do you think of that Robert Jordan's trying to do here? I don't know. This is why I created a YouTube channel, is so I can have these dorky conversations, because my wife don't want to hear this nonsense. My neighbors aren't going to want to talk about it. So that's all I got. I'm coming. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.